Okay, now we are recording. We'll give folks one more minute to come on. It looks like there are a couple more people joining. Okay. Great. So we will go ahead and get started. It's 10:01 my time. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you all so much for joining us. And we hope that you're staying safe and healthy and positive during these very unusual times. But we're so excited to have you all here with us this morning, our time. And so the goal of this webinar is to help you all learn a bit more about EE 30-30, how we approach EE in our organization, and also to help you navigate the nomination form and give you a couple tips and advice on how to write a really great nomination. And we will also have plenty of time at the end for questions. And this is being recorded, and I will share the link to this within the next 48 hours over email. And it will also be linked on the 30-30 homepage. So, my slides will, there we go. First, thank you again so much for joining us. We're excited to see so much interest in this program. It's growing and growing each year. And it's just, this program is such a great opportunity to recognize and build leadership in environmental education. So we're so excited to see so much interest in it. And before we really dive in, I wanted to go over a few Zoom logistics. You are all muted right now, both your cameras and your microphones, but you can type any questions into the chat box. So click the chat icon here, and then on the right hand of your screen, you can actually select whether you want your message to go to the panelists, so myself and my colleague Melissa, or to all attendees. It's completely up to you. And you can send in questions throughout the webinar. We are going to pause at certain points to take some questions, but otherwise we'll save probably most of the questions until the end, and we should have plenty of time for questions at the end. So first, to test out the chat box and get us started, please type into the chat and let us know where you all are joining us from. Let's see if this works. Great. Italy, Brazil, Durham. I'm in Durham too. Maryland, Texas, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Florida, Delaware, Virginia. Great. Awesome. We really have folks from all over. Philippines, great. Awesome. Well, great job with the chat. And Denmark, awesome. Okay, so my name is Nina Hamilton, and I am the International Program Specialist at the North American Association for Environmental Education, and I manage the EE 30 Under 30 program. And I'm also joined here by my colleague, Melissa. Melissa,
hello.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Melissa Taggart, and I direct our international programs at NAAEE. And I'm so excited to be here today. And 30 Under 30 is an amazing program, and it's an incredible network to join. So hopefully this will all help you put your best foot forward in your applications to join it. Thank you, Nina.
Great, thanks, Melissa. Okay, and so EE 30 Under 30 is a program of the North American Association for Environmental Education, or NAAEE, how we pronounce the acronym. And we are a professional association for environmental education, and we're working with educators throughout North America, as is in our name, but really also with educators around the world, all with the goal of advancing the field of environmental education. So before diving into the 30 Under 30 program, we wanted to briefly cover with you all what we mean when we say environmental education. You may hear me say EE, just as an easier way to say environmental education. And we hope that this might also help you as you're writing your nominations. So EE is really beyond sharing knowledge. It's about equipping people with the tools, skills, and motivation to be better stewards of the environment. And it's also very much a learning process, and it's all about developing these critical thinking skills to make informed decisions about the environment and about sustainability in general. So overall, it's really not what to think, but how to think. Thinking about it as a whole system, and really designing programs that are equitable and inclusive, and that build these, build this knowledge and skills and motivation around the environment. So EE gives people a chance to learn about the environment and sustainability, and especially the role that we play in it. It also allows people to reflect on their values and attitudes, and even look at different the cultural differences in these. And again, it really goes beyond sharing knowledge. It's also about skill building and about behavior change for a sustainable future. And along with all of this, EE is also about addressing the triple bottom line, or that is the three pillars of sustainability: social, environmental, and economic. So EE is about building bridges across these multiple components of sustainability. And so when we think about environmental education, we're thinking about how we can all contribute to a sustainable future that really meets all of our needs in addressing these three pillars. So who is the audience when we talk about EE? It's really anyone. We see EE as a lifelong learning process. It's for children, adults, everyone. And it can be even multi-generational. And EE can also happen anywhere. It could be within the formal school system or outside of school, in communities, really anywhere. Anywhere that people can learn. So NAAE, here at NAAE, we have a really wide range of programs working to build capacity, strengthen networks, link research to practice, and a lot more. And so you can learn more about all of these programs at our website, NAAE.org. Okay, and so building leadership is one of NAAE's core goals, and through EE 30 under 30, we are working to recognize, award, and build the capacity of this diverse talent and leadership that is really in every community around the globe. And so this is our EE 30 under 30 class of 2019. They are incredible, and I'm sure those of you on this webinar are. And so we're really excited to have you here, and we're excited to read your nominations. And EE 30 under 30 started in 2016, and it has very quickly grown in its reach. And we're really excited to see how far word has spread about the program. So yes, you can apply from any country in the world. And the goal, I think, as I've mentioned, is to build leadership in environmental education by recognizing young leaders and providing opportunities for professional development and networking for this community of leaders. So now we're going into our 5th year. We have 120 alumni from 29 countries, and they range from 15 years old to, well, now over 30 years old for some of our earlier alumni. And we also want to thank our sponsors on the bottom of this page, on the bottom of this slide, who have really been instrumental in this program throughout its different stages. So, thinking about what do you get as an EE 30 under 30? What are the benefits? So the 2020 awardees will all receive a physical award and recognition through our networks. They'll also have access to a growing community of EE leaders through the 30 under 30 community. Have access to ongoing professional development opportunities, and we do this through a variety of ways. And for the first time this year, all 2020 awardees will receive an all expenses paid trip to attend and present at the NAA conference, which is an incredible opportunity. And we expect to be making the final announcement about the 2020 awardees by August of this year. So a little bit about the conference. I just want to preface with saying that currently we are moving forward with our conference this October, but we are continuing to monitor and reassess the situation with COVID-19, and any updates about the conference will be posted on the conference webpage and also through NAAE's newsletter called EE News. So if you are following the conference, be sure to sign up for those updates just to stay in the know. And so each year, our conference brings together over 1,200 environmental education professionals from around the world. And it's a really great opportunity to share about your work, make new connections. There's a lot of opportunities there, even outside of EE 30 under 30. But for our EE 30 under 30 awardees, we also organize special networking opportunities and other opportunities to share and connect with other professionals. So it's a really great opportunity. Okay, really quickly, who is eligible for EE 30 under 30? First and foremost, you can nominate either yourself or a colleague. So if for any reason you're no longer eligible, we definitely encourage you to nominate a colleague. I'm sure you all know some incredible people. And you can nominate as many people as you would like. You can nominate both yourself and someone else. Just submit a separate application for each person. And you must be 30 years old or younger on December 31st of this year. So unfortunately, if you turn 31 by the end of the year, unfortunately, you're no longer eligible. You also must be using environmental education in your work, and you must demonstrate leadership. And we'll talk a little bit about how to best communicate this in your application. But we really welcome applications from any sector, and our alumni have come from such a wide range of disciplines and are using environmental education in many different ways. So we really welcome applications from across sectors, across disciplines. And finally, you must be able to complete your application in English. We are not looking for perfect or fluent English. You do not need to write a perfect application in English, but you must be able to communicate, to complete the full application in English, and also you must be able to effectively communicate about your work and your impact and your passions in English. So unfortunately, at this time, we only have the capacity to accept applications in English. And importantly, we do accept and welcome nominations from anywhere in the world. Okay, so I'm going to pause for if any questions have come in that we can address for now. If not,
Okay, so Nina, here's a question. If I am temporarily furloughed due to COVID, but will return to my role when my facility reopens, does that affect eligibility?
That is a great question. I would say no, that you're still eligible. The main eligibility is that you are under 30 and that you have done work in environmental education. So even if you are not at the moment doing any programming, if you do have plenty of experience in environmental education and you have examples where you can demonstrate your leadership in those experiences, then you are completely eligible.
Yeah, I know this is such a challenging time for so many of you, and this is, we want to support everyone to get through this challenging time, and joining the 30 Under 30 network is actually a really positive thing. And so we definitely would not penalize anyone for any impacts that might happen as a result of this virus. We want this to be a source of support. The second question, and this is so can we be from anywhere in the world and our work as well, or does the work need to be focused in North America? And I think the answer to that, yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah, so you can apply from anywhere in the world, but also your work can be anywhere in the world. And you can actually go look at our the biographies of the current 30 Under 30, of all of our 30 Under 30, and you can see they are working all over the world on all different issues, working with all different types of audiences. So yes, you can be from and working anywhere in the world.
Yep. And then the next question is, if we have leadership experiences that are not related to environmental education, would you still like to see it on the application?
That is a great question, and I will address that when we get to the application. Because I think that will tie in well there. Okay. Great. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on, but yes, please feel free to keep typing in questions as you have them, and we will also have more time at the end. Okay, so now we're going to actually talk about the actual application. And we'd like to just give you some advice on what makes a great nomination based on our experience reading nominations and also receiving feedback from our external reviewers, our reviewers who review and score all of the nominations. And also throughout this, I'll be talking about you as the nominee, But keep in mind, all of this advice also applies if you are nominating someone else. So first, some general advice for your nomination as a whole. So first and foremost, concrete examples can really help your application, make your application a strong one. And particularly examples about how you use environmental education and why you are a leader, how you've demonstrated your leadership abilities. Those examples can be really powerful and important. And this really helps to paint a clear picture for the reviewers as they read your application. So try to think as specific as you can when you're talking about your impact, your leadership, and your work. Also, I guess this kind of ties in with concrete examples, but do try to include as much detail as you can. And use the word count as a guide. So if there is a 300 word limit, feel free to use all of it. Use as much space as you can to talk in as much detail as you can about your work. The more detail and more specifics you can give, the better picture the reviewers have about your work.
Nina, there's a question that's relevant here that came up in the chat, which is, can you give an example of a concrete, can you give a concrete example, like what we're looking for?
That's a good question.
I will start just, Anne, by saying that if you can write about specific experiences you've had leading efforts, and talk about what has resulted in the efforts you've led, that's like what we're thinking about is stories, concrete specifics. And I mean, I don't know if Nina, you have any specific examples of what that would look like. It's hard to give specific examples, and I don't know if it's as useful because everyone's leadership shows up in so many different ways, and we don't want you to feel like your version of leadership or what we might say is what we're looking for. We're very open to many different ways of leading things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Nina, did you want to,
Yeah, I'll add also, I think this really comes up in the question about leadership, because it can be easier to talk very specifically about your work because it's your programming, or you have a specific audience, so maybe that's a little bit easier. But we find in the question that asks about, I'm going to also go through these questions, but the question that specifically asks about you as a leader, that's where we see it's harder to be so specific, and so especially with that question, I would encourage you to, instead of generally explaining some of your leadership qualities or abilities, or generally talking about yourself as a leader and your leadership style, maybe instead be sure to talk about specific instances where you demonstrated that you're a leader. Maybe it was that you led a specific initiative, or you overcame a specific problem, or you mentored a certain group. So that's the question where we see this more often, that it's definitely a lot more helpful for the reviewers to have specific examples to show how you've demonstrated your leadership.
And let us know if that answers your question or if you have any follow-up.
Yeah, it's a good question and a hard
question.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. So yes, as much detail as you can. Next, also do provide any supporting articles or links or videos or other materials that you think might support your application or give the reviewer a better picture of your work. I'm not going into that part of the application on the webinar today, but there are parts of the application where you can provide links and you can upload other documents. So do consider uploading those if you have any. If you don't have videos or links or anything, that is completely fine too. But if you do have them, be sure to share them. And yes, overall, as Melissa alluded to, we want to hear your story. And this is a really hard thing to give a specific example of when we're giving advice. But just try to keep this in mind as you're writing your nomination. We want to know about you and your impact and work that you've done, but also your motivations and your vision for the future. And so the nominees that we've had that are most memorable are those that have a kind of a clear story throughout their nomination about themselves as leaders and about their impact and about their goals. So again, this is hard to give a specific example for, but just keep this in mind that to tell us your story.
And I would, this came up in the chat. Khalil mentioned looking through the alumni 30 under 30s write-ups on the website is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
To get a sense of, you know, what we're looking for a little bit. There's a lot of in examples in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I definitely recommend looking through those biographies. But also, if you don't see someone as doing exactly what you're doing, that's totally fine too. But yes, looking at their stories can hopefully help you, be inspiring as you're writing your own. Okay. So, and again, the deadline is May 8th, so be sure to get your nominations in online through the platform by May 8th. Okay, so I wanted to quickly go through each of the 5 main questions of the application. Because we think it might be helpful to clarify what we're looking for in each of these. And this is really the heart of the application and what reviewers are looking at most closely. So the first question, describe the impact of your work towards promoting a sustainable future, particularly by using environmental education. And again, provide specific examples about your role in an initiative or project. So with this question, do you try to focus on your work that is linked to environmental education? We understand that maybe your environmental education work might be part of a bigger initiative, that is beyond environmental education, and that's fine too. But we do want to see that environmental education is a key piece of what you're doing. So do tie that in here when you're talking about impact. So here, be sure to describe the impact your work has had and on who or what, and be clear about your specific role in achieving that impact. And we do understand that working in this field, in environmental education, or even the environmental field broadly, it can take years and years before we see concrete impacts. So, and especially if you're earlier on in your career, it can be hard. So we don't necessarily need to see statistics. We don't need to see like hard impacts, but we want to hear your story about how your work is promoting a sustainable future. So just talk about any impact that you've seen through your work, through your environmental education work in particular. And with this question, I particularly recommend, please do not simply list awards you received or memberships or affiliations. Those are more professional achievements, and there is space to list those later in the application. Here, specifically talk about the impact of your work and not necessarily professional achievements that you've had.
Nina, we have a question. Okay, do photos count as supporting materials And in addition, do papers you have written demonstrating environmental education count? I guess as impact.
Yeah, so you can, yes, so you can upload any supporting materials. It can be photos or documents. We don't really have specific guidance on what we define as supporting materials, but really any materials that you think adds to your story and paints a better picture of what you're doing in environmental education.
And then I thought I saw someone raise their hand. Dave Robledo, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Dave, if you have a question, you can type it in the chat and we'll do our best to answer it.
Recommend, yeah. Probably best to type it in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Okay, so that is the first main question of the application. And then second question builds on the first question, but here we want you to describe in more detail specifically how you use environmental education to achieve that impact that you've just mentioned. So how are you using environmental education to engage other people in addressing sustainability issues? And again, we recommend using specific examples. So clearly describing your work and the activities or initiatives that you're leading to achieve that impact. And I also recommend looking at NAA's webpage about what is EE and why it matters. And I've included the link here, and I will send this out along with the recording. But this just has a little bit more information about NAAE's approach or definition of EE. And basically we want to see how you are working with individuals or communities, schools, organizations, or others to equip them with those tools and skills to make informed decisions about the environment, as we mentioned earlier. So if you find it helpful, I definitely recommend looking through that website, that webpage, and it may help as you're writing your nomination. And in our review process, a common comment that we get from our external reviewers is that they wish the nominee had more information about how they use EE. So do take this question seriously and do provide as much detail and as much specifics, as many specifics as you can, because it's a very important part of your nomination.
Nina, we have two related questions that have come up.
Okay.
Okay, the first is, I'm wondering if it's okay to use programs, I'm assuming as examples, which were already done or accomplished, or do you prefer ongoing programs? And I would say, and related to that, there's an additional question: can an application be sent if the nominee's educational project is in progress?
Yes. So, yes, I think I forgot to mention that in question one. So yes, you can definitely talk about a work that has already been done or projects that are ongoing, are in progress. That is all great experience to include in your nomination. I definitely encourage you to focus on things, on experiences or achievements that you have already had or that are still going on, and focus less on things that you are planning to do, because we really want to hear about your experience and what you have done or are currently doing. So programs that are already done or accomplished, and also ongoing or in progress projects are all great experiences to include. Great.
Okay, great.
Okay. So the next question is about you as a leader. So how would you describe the nominee as a leader, and think about leadership qualities, their leadership qualities in the specific context of their work. And so here we recognize that leadership means different things to different people. So this is your opportunity to describe for our reviewers and the selection panel why you see yourself as a leader, and whatever that means, whatever leader means to you. And another common comment that we get from our external reviewers is that they wish the nominee had given more examples of how they demonstrated leadership in their work or career. So be as specific as you can be here. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. It's better to give, specific examples of where you demonstrated these qualities. So talk about a specific challenge or a specific initiative or a time when you were creative, or whatever leadership means to you. Think about what those qualities are and think about specific times or where you demonstrated that, because that is a lot more helpful for the reviewers than just listing some leadership qualities. So that's kind of what we're trying to get at here. And so talk about any initiatives or programs, campaigns, movements that particularly demonstrate how you are a leader, and be clear about your role in those. And so I will tie in that previous question about can you use non-environmental education examples for leadership? And I would say yes. I think we do want to see probably a little bit of your leadership experience in environmental education as well in this question, but you can definitely add to that with examples outside of your EE work that demonstrate you as a leader. Because this question is not specifically about environmental education, so yeah, so you can definitely complement any EE leadership examples with examples outside of that EE work. If that helps answer that question. And like Melissa said, this is a hard one because we really try to refrain from giving specific examples about leadership because it can mean different things to different people. And we do encourage our reviewers to stay open in this sense. And so really this, like I said, this is your opportunity to tell the reviewers and selection panel why you see yourself as a leader.
Okay, we have a question. Is there a specific model or curricula being referenced when we are referring to EE, or is it how we define EE in our work in the land sector, agriculture, etc.? I'll start, Nina, and then.
Yeah.
So I would say in this, Nina sort of gave an overview of what environmental education is in the beginning of this webinar, so definitely reference that. We think of environmental education in the same way as was established many years ago in the Tbilisi Declaration, which was largely the founding of the modern day environmental education. You can look at our website for all those definitions. Environmental education is a very broad field, but it is all about, as Nina said, teaching people how to think, not what to think. So you may, Khalil, in your work have some definitions of environmental education, and there are also very standard definitions that we use at NAAEE. So I would definitely encourage you to just become familiar with what we're seeing. So environmental education is not, for example, social marketing, which is really trying to get people to do a specific action. Environmental education is helping people develop the critical thinking skills that are needed to address sustainability and environmental issues. So just think about that as you're going through your application. And I hope that's helpful. And please follow up with additional questions that you might have, because I noticed that you're referencing a specific field. And so if there's something specific that you're wondering about, please feel free to ask that. And Nina, would you like to say anything or add to that?
I think you put it perfectly. And yeah, just feel free to reach out if there's a very specific question that you have about your specific context. I'd be happy to answer it. Yeah. Thanks, Melissa.
Yep. There's one more question that just came in. How many nominations are you expecting to receive?
Oh,
I
good
think,
question.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell exactly how many we are expecting this year, but last year we received about 180 nominations from all over the world. So
yeah, it's getting as the program gains, it's more widely recognized. We're getting more and more nominations, and so it's really important, I think, to really put your best foot forward in this application and be as specific as possible, so that your application really stands out to the reviewers. And that's why it's really great that you're all on this webinar, because I think the more tools you have in your toolbox to present yourself in this application, the better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So moving on, the next main question is asking about your professional goals and or long-term vision for your environmental education efforts. So the first three questions that we talked about were about what you've done and what you've demonstrated already in your work, or that you're currently demonstrating. But with this question, we want to know about your future goals and your vision. And so we basically want to better understand your professional goals and see that your work that you are working towards a longer term mission or vision with your work. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that one.
Yep.
And then lastly, so this is not the very last question on the application, but this is the last question that I will be talking about on the webinar, because this is the last, like, the free open answer questions. So this is a new question that we added this year. So basically, how do you see yourself contributing to the EE 30 under 30 community? And as this community continues to grow, we are really working on new ways to keep the community connected and continue to offer opportunities for networking and professional development. But we found that the community is at its best when its members are active and that they're contributing to this community. So with this question, we want to see how you might see yourself contributing with that community, being an active part of that, of the 30 under 30 community. So so you could talk about how you would contribute to the community, but also how you personally might grow from the network and these opportunities. And so this is one you don't have to give specific examples necessarily. You can talk generally about why you'd be excited to join the community, but you can give some examples if you'd like about how you've maybe engaged with other professional communities, but that's definitely not required if you don't have similar experience to talk about. And if you are nominating someone else, we definitely recommend that you provide a brief quote from the person that you are nominating about their interest in joining the community. We are not requiring this, but we think that if you're able to provide a quote from the nominee, we think that that will really help the reviewers as they're reviewing this question of the nomination. So yes, that is the last of the questions that I'm covering. Are there any questions about any of those? No?
Maybe we can just pause for a minute to see if any questions come up.
I guess actually I'm very close to the end, so maybe I'll wrap it up and then we can have questions. Okay, great. So those were the 5 main questions. Like I said, there are other questions on the nominations form, so be sure to fill it out completely. But we thought those are the 5 questions that would be most helpful to talk through on this webinar. And so definitely encourage you to explore the 30 Under 30 homepage. And on this page, you can access the online application. You can preview the application through with the Word document version. But do note that only applications that are submitted through the online platform will be accepted. We won't be able to accept any Word document versions. You can also, there is also a link to help you. We have a promo kit with ways that you can help us spread the word about the program. So you can check that out. And we really are hoping to represent environmental education efforts and really great examples of leadership from around the world. So we really do appreciate your help spreading the word about this program and sharing it with others that you think might be excellent candidates for 30 Under 30. Within the next 24 to 48 hours, I will also put the recording of this webinar up on the site. And last but not least, on this page, you can also view all of the biographies of our alumni. As we've mentioned already, it's an incredibly helpful way to see the kinds of stories and projects and leaders that are in this network. And so with that, I'd like to open it up to any other questions that you have. Thank you again for joining us. And if you have any questions, even after we close the webinar, feel free to email me. My email is on the screen here. I'm more than happy to help.
Great, thank you. We have some questions. So the first one is from Khalil, are only winners added to the EE network, or is it an open community for those who are interested in exchanging best practices and to learn from each other? So I'll just quickly start, Nina, with an answer to that. So the EE 30 Under 30 program is an award. So every year we select 30 people to be part of that who really demonstrate leadership in excellence in environmental education. However, we would love for all of you to join our environmental education community. So the main way that you can join us and share best practices and meet other people is to go to our website, NAAEE.org, and look for in the center of the page, EE Pro. EE Pro is our sort of like our social networking site for environmental educators. And you can join that, or you can peruse resources, but if you join, it's free. We try to make everything open access and free as possible. You can join others who are interested in sharing best practices and network that way. And of course, the conference, whether or not you're selected to be part of 30 Under 30, please think about the conference in October as a way to join our community as well. We have a lot of questions coming in. Anything to add, Nina, or should I move to the next one?
No, yeah, I think you covered it perfectly. I also just put in the link to EE Pro in the
Great.
chat.
Yeah, so that's, thank you. If you don't have a professional public social media page, do you recommend creating one?
I would say it's not necessarily, it might not be necessary if you weren't wanting to anyways. The important thing is that you're able to communicate about your work, and if you can provide some additional links or documents or photos or anything that supports what you've written in your application.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's a natural extension of who you are as a leader to have a social media page, go for it. But if not, it's not necessary. We want this to be all about who you are, and what, you know, as an authentic, we want to see your authenticity in this application. You don't need to be a member of NAAE to nominate. That is correct. You do not. Okay, so this is another question. With the current situation happening around the globe, is there a possibility that the conference or awards will be moved to 2021?
Yeah, good question.
Yes.
So they, as I mentioned earlier, for the conference, we are, well, but our conference manager and our leadership is continuing to monitor, the situation, which is of course changing all the time. And so if the conference ends up being moved or changed or moved to a virtual conference, that is a possibility. We are not sure yet what that will mean for the conference scholarships that the 30 under 30 would receive. But so there is a chance that the conference will be affected, and we would work with the 2020 class to adapt accordingly. For the awarding, our awarding of the EE 30 under 30 awards, we don't anticipate that to be affected at all by the pandemic, because we can do that all virtually, and we ship the awards to, we often ship the physical awards to our awardees. So the program will continue on, and the awarding will continue on no matter what. The conference, there is a chance it might be affected, but we are not sure exactly yet what that will look like.
Great. Any other questions? And if we missed a question, please feel free to rewrite it. You all had amazing questions. Thank you.
Yeah,
it's good for us also, because then we know what to address to in the future.
Yes, yeah, this is very helpful.
Yeah.
And yes, and if you need any other clarification from me, or if you have a specific situation or very specific question, just email me, and I'm more than happy to help.
Yep.
Okay.
I hope you all stay healthy and safe. Thank you all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, we will go ahead and wrap this up, and thank you again, and email me if you have any questions. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Nina.
Bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.